Thank you to everyone joining us today from across the country and around the world. I'm Quennie POTUS, Partner Success Manager at Conscious Capitalism Inc. And on behalf of the entire CCI team, we appreciate you taking the time to learn and grow in community with us. Conscious Capitalism Inc. is a nonprofit organization dedicated to catalyzing the movement by creating learning opportunities like today's session and building systems of support for practicing conscious capitalists through interactive programming in our senior leader network, engagement in your local region through our chapters, and in-person events to further connect, like our CEO Summit that's coming up later this month. As many of you know, conscious capitalism is a philosophy that emphasizes the human nature of business, as well as a movement of business leaders from around the world working to change the practice and perception of capitalism as a means to elevate humanity. Several times a month, we offer virtual gatherings as a way for the community to see how this philosophy takes shape in the leadership journeys and the business practices of those in our network. Today, we are excited to welcome Curtis Hite and Sandy Hermosillo of Improving, one of CCI's partner organizations and one of Conscious Capitalism's movement leaders, to share how they have expanded conscious business both inside and outside of their organization, including mapping their efforts to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. The session will run for about 45 minutes. Curtis, Sandy, and I will be in conversation for about 25 of those minutes, and then transition to the audience for questions during the last 10 to 15 minutes. Please feel free to use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we will try to get to as many of your questions as we can during our time together. If you're having any technical issues, please email us at info@consciouscapitalism.org, and one of our team members will be there to assist. This session is also being recorded and will be available on our website under the events page. Now I'm honored to introduce Curtis Hite, CEO and Chairman of Improving Holdings. Curtis has a background in computer science and engineering and was a member of the Corps of Cadets, serving as commanding officer of Squadron 6 and as a member of the Ross Volunteers. Curtis began his career at Rockwell International, then along with some partners founded Expeed, a software development consulting and training company. Expeed was acquired by Valtech in 1999, and Curtis soon became CEO of Valtech's North American operations. In 2007, Curtis and many of the same partners established the Blue Ocean Group, which quickly acquired a small training company called Improving Enterprises and adopted the name Improving. The company has been blessed with continued growth since then, repeatedly receiving accolades including the Inc. 500, Inc. 5000, Dallas 100, and Aggie 100. More importantly, the company has received recognition from its employees as one of the best workplaces in Texas, as noted by the Dallas Morning News, Dallas Business Journal, and Texas Monthly. Curtis also sits on the board of directors at Conscious Capitalism Inc. I'm also excited to introduce Sandy Hermosillo, who has been with the Improving team since 2012. She is integral in helping the organization establish and strengthen institutional relationships with key players in the IT sector within Mexico, such as universities, local, state, and federal governments, as well as with companies and business organizations. Sandy has also taken charge of the activities of corporate social responsibility in improving nearshore, getting involved with different groups in relation to initiatives of inclusion, diversity, environmental sustainability, good labor practices, among other strategic activities for the company. She leads participation in the ethics and CSR committees and the LGBTQ inclusion committee within Improving Nearshore, as well as initiatives at the Jalisco Institute of Technologies and Information and National Chamber of the Electronic, Telecommunications, Information Technology Industry. That was a mouthful. Thank you and welcome to you both. How are you guys doing today?
Well, thank you. And I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here, Queenie, and it's an exciting topic for us to discuss today.
Hi, Queenie.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, so sustainability has been such a hot topic with leadership teams who really want to focus on building their team while supporting building a better world. So I want to just dive into it. I know we have a lot of information to share with the audience. So first question, for those not familiar with Improving though, Curtis, can you share a little bit more about the company? What makes Improving different from other tech management organizations?
Sure. So Improving was founded back in 2007, and we've actually enjoyed growth for every year since then. Starting pretty small, we got introduced into conscious capitalism at the CEO Summit, which is coming up, but it was back in 2009. A fellow board member, Greg Massey, invited me, and that's really where we started to get involved in this community. Since then, we've gone from around 5 million or so, 5 million or so in revenue to about 250. We're 1,500 employees across the North America right now, Canada, Mexico, and the US. And one of the things we differentiate, and I'm happy that we're putting the slide up here, if you were to look at our website, you really can't tell what we do because we lead with building trust. We believe that our first job every day is to build trust. It's not necessarily to build software. And that's an ambitious goal. It's a goal that we're always going to, at some point, fail at. But it also gives us an opportunity to then build upon it. And this is one of our major differentiators. Another one would be our involvement in conscious business. We believe that business is a force of good for all of our stakeholders, and we try to live that and put that into play every day.
I love that. I mean, failure does happen to all organizations and leadership teams, but we're always learning when we fail, right? So Improving has spent a lot of time investing in their people. And in fact, the company continues to vote as best place to work. Can you talk about what led you to create and build such a conscious culture and why a focus on culture is so important? Maybe give us some examples on how you continue to cultivate and improve that.
Sure. So culture is important. It was important long before conscious capitalism was a part of our ethos. And like most things that are important to you, there's usually some reason in the past that led to that being important. And I've been fortunate enough to always like the places I've worked, whether I was an intern or whether I was working at Raytheon and then Expeed and now Improving. I was very fortunate, and I want to share that type of experience with other people. I don't believe that work has to be something that you really compete with life, right? Life-work balance kind of suggests that one is against each other, and I prefer the concept of life integration, of work is just part of a bigger concept of life. And how can we share that experience or share that gift, I would say, with other people so that work isn't against life. It's just part of a bigger picture. And Improving, one of our pillars is culture, and it involves a whole lot. You're going to see a lot of that today, just one aspect, but we have whole programs on building trust. We have something you'll hear Sandy talk about with Come Together. Yes, best places to work, but that's just our guide. We now have over 100 of those recognitions, but there are years where one of our offices has failed to receive the recognition, and that sure is a wake up for the leadership. So very important.
I love that work and life integration. Another SLN member of ours uses the term undivided life. And I feel like that's really just starting to change a lot of cultures in organizations. So thank you for sharing that. Something else that has become increasingly important for many companies is how to address sustainable development. Can you elaborate on why this is so important to the Improving team, and how have you been integrating your business practices to align with, I had mentioned the UN Sustainable Development Goals. I know there's a lot of them. There's 17 of the goals and objectives. So do you focus on one or two? Do you try to address each one separately?
Hi, Queenie. Thank you for the opportunity for us to share what we are doing in improving. Can you help me to share the screen, please?
Yes.
So first one, I want to share with
Mhm.
you what is the Sustainable Development Goals, because we are talking about that, but maybe some of the audience, they haven't listened about it. So this started in 2015 from the UN. The countries that are part of the UN, they decide to develop these development goals in order to have a sustainable world for the 2030. And why it is important? I think everyone here wants to continue having water at home, food, to have a better society, to have people with no poverty, zero hunger, innovation, and sustainability. So this why that is the reason why it is important. It is not only important for improving. I think it has to be important for all the people in the world and also for the government. So those sustainable development goals were made in order to accomplish by 2030 and to have a sustainable world, and it has to be important for everyone. So if it's the first time that you are seeing those this image, I think it's going to be to become more familiar for you.
Mhm.
And can you change in the
Yes.
next one?
Mhm.
And the thing that we are doing in improving in this year, as Curtis mentioned it, for us the culture is very important, and we have done this for many years. But in this year, we started with this initiative named Come Together, where we pick one topic, one thing per month, and when we are addressing one development goal. In the next slide, you can see and identify which development goal is addressing in each month. So right now we are addressing 8 development goals. For sure, every year we can change it. In the sustainable world, all the time we are improving, we are changing. I don't know, you can change the
Yes.
presentation, please.
Is it there? Is
Yeah,
that good?
that one.
Okay.
So in that one, you can identify which are the goals that we are addressing in every month. Later, I will to explain a little bit how we are doing it and all the impact that we have done through the year and all the impact that we want to do. But at least we are addressing a development goals, and why we are picking these a development goals is because we plan this, but maybe for the next year it could be different. We can decide to pick another development goals, but the ones that we want to continue having for sure is climate action, gender equality, innovation, because it's part of our company, and also decent work and economic growth.
Oh, this is great. And we're in the month of October and it says fun and games. So I really want to be involved in this one. This sounds amazing. I really love how you're open and transparent, just within your organization and your stakeholders in these types of business practices. So you have quite a few locations nationwide, including Canada and now Mexico. How has the company generated company-wide engagement, that with all those different locations? How do you promote and generate sustainable development goals within each of those locations? Can you talk about some of the programs and maybe initiatives that you've started?
Yeah, sure. As I mentioned it, we have this initiative named Come Together that I am the champion in a corporate level, where we are having also 16 champions that are located in each office. So we make sure that we have someone who is in charge of this initiative in every office. Can you change the slide, please? And what we do, we communicate, we have a newsletter every month, and we do every month challenge, in-person events, and virtual talks. Those challenge could be very different, and it could be in groups or it could be per person. In-person events, all the improvers has to go to our offices to spend an evening or a night or in the morning, something related with the topic that we pick that month. And personal and virtual talks we are bringing speakers that are expert in that topic, and it has to be in English and in Spanish. Why? Because as you mentioned it, we are offices in Mexico, Canada, and US, and some of the topics are very very unique. So we want to have
Mm.
the speakers who speak the native language of the listeners. So that is very important for us. If you can change, I have been putting some photos of the things that we have
Oh,
done.
I
For
love
example,
this.
in January, we do something related with well-being. So we have yoga classes, we have a smoothie class, we have financial class, and also we have some challenge where people were running together, and at the end of the month they got a prize for that, and everybody was focused on that and making awareness of the importance for the well-being. I haven't put for the whole year, but in the next one we put in March. For us it's very important, talking about um, the next one please. Thank you. About woman and more because we are in the IT industry, right? So gender equality is very important, and also to celebrate women. So at the end of the month, we have a wine tasting. If you can change
Oh,
the,
sure.
so we have
Oh.
at the everybody in all the offices at the same time we were having wine tasting, we were celebrating women, but at the beginning of the month we have talked about feminism, how it is important for women to speak loud, how it is important to have women in the board members, in the management team. So we were addressing those topics, with meanwhile we were educating, because if we are talking about sustainability, many of the topics are new topics for many people. So when if the company wants to start addressing those topics, the first step that they have to do is to educate. So we were doing education, but also we want to have fun. That is the reason why we decide to do this kind of events that is really fun. And the important thing is that those events happens the same day and most of the time at the same time. So you realize that improvers from Atlanta, Houston, Dallas, Mexico, Aguascalientes, Calgary are doing the same thing at the same day. So that is the reason why we are connected with all the improvers. The next one, please. And in May, we are a very multicultural company. We have people from all around the world. So we did a panel where we put foreign people that are working in our companies. And we ask them, how do you feel working in improving? How do you feel working in another country? And then if you are a foreign employee, you can get aligned with all the challenge and all the things that you are facing meanwhile you are living in another country, and you feel that you belong to the team. So that was a really nice. In the next slide, you can see that we did a cultural party where we bring food from different cities. For example, in Mexico, we have a very big Cuban community and they cook for us. So they bring food, Cuban food to the office, and in the other offices they bring Mexican food because they have team in Mexico and they want to taste the Mexican food, right?
Yes.
And I think that is
I think that's
delicious.
great.
Yeah. And the next one, please, is the June month that for improving is very important, inclusion and diversity. And as I mentioned, it is very important to start with the education. Why? Because many of those topics are new for many of us. The first step that we have to do is educate. So we have virtual events talking about that, and then we have challenge when we put case studies in a team channel where every improver can see it, and then they can share their thoughts and their comments and their experience, and in that way you can start meet new people and share your thoughts and to realize that you are in the company that you want to be. And July, the next month, is, well, those are the photos for the training that we were giving.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in July,
July.
it is one of the months that I like the most, and Curtis know that. That is the environment, take care of the environment, and you, Quennie, as well.
Yes.
We were bringing two speakers to talk about how is the climate change, how we can help to have a better environment, how we can do a little stuff in order to recycling, to reuse, and also we do an in-person event. For example, in Mexico, we did a reforestation. In other offices, they went to clean up their surrenders. We do clothing donation and also recycling devices. So it was a month when we were giving this awareness of taking care of our world, because at the end is the only one that we have, and everybody has to help us to take care of it. And finally, I put well, those are the
There's some
photos in the,
examples. Oh, I love that.
yeah, in the reforestation and all the recycling things that we did in the several, in all the offices we were doing that. Yeah.
That's great.
I,
Oh, thank you.
I'm going to add something real quick, Queenie, too.
Yeah.
Right. When you look at something like this, it looks big and complicated. And yes, right now it is big and it's complex and we're doing an awful lot, but it doesn't have to be, and it doesn't necessarily start this way. This is because we've been doing this for an extended period of time.
Mhm.
And you had asked a question earlier, wait a minute, do you just focus on one thing? Do you do everything? What we're trying to show here and demonstrate and improving is that we can come together. That's the name of the program, with all of our stakeholders to educate and elevate some of these very important topics. But there's something also that we have to make sure is important, that everybody feels safe. And that means everybody. Because there are a lot of these subjects, there are a variety of opinions on them, and people think they have the right way. And if they become what I'm going to call righteous on either side of the spectrum, these things start to break down. And we welcome people celebrating. If you were to say, and the challenge of the team is come up with non-divisive topics and challenges and means to come together in each of these. And it's not that hard, right? Who can say hunger reduction in the world is a bad thing? And who can say that taking care of our environment? I can tell you, people can come together on all of these things as long as we don't focus on the fringes. We focus right here in coming together and making meaningful impact in a good way, which is the purpose of conscious capitalism, is that business can be a force of good in this world.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that, Curtis. And Sandy, I mean, it's just, it does look complicated, but I love that you and Curtis always bring up the word educate. It is important to educate, because if people don't know, they don't know where to start. You can help by educating them. And it seems, it's such an organized way of doing different ways of being sustainable, and, breaking them down month by month and focusing on one objective, I think is brilliant, because then you're doing different sustainable goals and incorporating them, company-wide. And I love the virtual events, but you try and hold them at the same time, if you can, with all of your other locations. I think that's so wonderful. Everybody, Conscious Capitalism Inc. is a remote culture, but everybody is in different time zones and whatnot. So we really try and focus on company culture and really connecting with each other. So I love that you at Improving do that, as well as in-person events, and as well as really providing the team with a challenge. I think that's important takeaway for them to bring, kind of homework home. What can we do to help? So I love that. Thank you so much. Next question. How are you mapping and measuring your efforts and progress on these specific objectives?
Thank you, Queenie. Actually, you go to the next slides. I have well,
Is this
that is
one?
the hunger reduction. No, the next one, please. That was what we did in September. But how is this? How we measure in that way? So at the end of each quarter, we send this infographic internally and externally. Why? If you are having a sustainable initiative in your company, it's very important that you communicate, you measure, and you evaluate. So in this way, you can see all the participants, you can see all the things that we have done per quarter. If you go to our social media, you will find it, and also internally. In the next one, you will see the numbers for the next quarter, and we are building the infographic for the quarter number 3 that just ended. But we have all the information of who participate, who donate, the amount of donation, the amount of participation, and well, that is a metric that we have inside of improving. Also, in the next one, we have the number of participation, and this is a really good number, at least until July. The half of the improvers has been participating at least in one activity in Come Together. Why this is important? Because we have a variety of topics, virtual talks, challenges, and events. Maybe some improvers are more interested in one topic than in other, and that is totally fine. So in that way, we gave them the opportunity to pick the one they like the most, the one they are more interested, and then we are getting a really good number of participation. And also, the next slide, please. We send a monthly satisfaction survey at the end of each month, because we believe that we can improve all the time. It is the name of our country, of our company. So as you can see, the rates are really good, and we have receiving feedback to improve. We have done some changes on that, but the rates are really good. We asked how was the experience in the event, how was the speaker, did you like the topic or not, and if they have any feedback that we can improve. So we are also having meetings with our champions, one per month, and we are getting all the information because they are the ones who are running this initiative locally, and they are getting the information from the improvers, so we can improve in that way. And at the end of the year, we are going to do an annual report with all the impact that we have done in the 3 countries, and it's the first year that we are going to have that for the whole improver. We have done that in Mexico before, but now we are integrating the 3 countries, so we are very happy to have that.
That's fantastic. I would love to see that. And it's just something, you know, we like to make sure that as improving is one of our movement's leaders, this is something that other organizations can model after, you know, because everyone is starting to find different ways to be, you know, sustainable. And there are, like you said, different objectives that each organization or business leader has. So I would love to be able to share that with our community, and just see the impact that you've made as a firm-wide organization. So that's wonderful. I'm gonna stop sharing for now. And let's see here. So I know Curtis has alluded to this when he spoke after you presented, but there always are those business leaders who believe in the sole focus of just, you know, running their company, not trying to save the world, making a profit, not getting involved in global issues. What is your response to those types of business leaders?
Well, my response is each business has to find its own path. And I am okay with the businesses that choose that path. That's their path, and they'll attract the people that might be more oriented that way. But I believe that the future is in businesses that are more like improving and others in the conscious capitalism business. And I think we'll pull the rest along, because eventually we'll be attracting, and this does help us attract better employees, more employees, especially in the tight labor markets that we're experiencing right now. And I believe it's a competitive advantage for those companies that actually lean into these things now while actually doing good for the world. Another very important thing is not every business can be everything. And I actually think if a business were to focus too much on all these areas, they lose focus on the very thing that they do. What is it that they do that generates the money that actually enables them to do good in the world, right? Because everything takes resources, time, effort, and money. And as a result, what I would encourage businesses to do is, if you look at a program like we're running and Sandy is leading at Improving, yes, we have a topic every month. We're introducing some of these topics. We make part of our ethos and will be every single year. Things like inclusion and diversity, it will be in our calendar for Come Together every year, renewing our interest, re-educating and elevating the education. Same thing with women because we're going to elevate women in our industry
Mhm.
because it's so hard to attract. Right, 22% in the computer programming, software engineering. Only 22% of the entire industry is women. It's not that we don't want them. It's, I think, more or less women don't want to come into our industry overall. So how do we elevate that? And that's going to be a theme, but other companies may have other themes, other focuses as well. And that's okay. And to not have too much focus. So what I would say in summary is choose a few areas, start small. This is our first year. I'm very proud that we have over half of our employees through mid-year have actually participated in this program, and it's measured. That's a great testament to Sandy and what she's doing, but this is a top down as well. Everybody in the organization is supporting this because I have elevated this to make sure that this is a focus of improving.
Thank you for sharing that. You're right, and it's, you know, it's interesting to see how conscious capitalists, you know, that come together are from all different, you know, walks of life, all different industries, all different, you know, places in their conscious journeys. So that you're right. It's nice to be able to say, no, thank you for wanting to join us. We appreciate you, you know, wanting to be sustainable. We know that you might not know how. Start small, start somewhere, wherever it may be. That's great. So like I said, there is 17 different objectives with the UN Sustainable Development Goals list. Can you share any helpful hints for other organizations who are looking to align their conscious business practices with these goals? Since there are so many, I know you had said start small, start you know, where it's relevant to your organization, but beginning their journey in sustainable development just as a whole, do you have any helpful hints on exactly what step one would be?
Yeah, choose something that your people are interested in, the local people, because you're going to get more participation and choose some of the topics that are less controversial. You might make the argument that none of these should be controversial. Okay, maybe that's true, but it doesn't change the fact that some of them may be. So choose some that people are interested in, that are non-controversial, that you can rally people behind, and set small goals, but also make sure you set a pace that you can maintain. Far too often, people are going to say, excuse me, I'm going to start with that program that Improving has done. Probably too big. This started after years. Dallas would focus on hunger reduction, and our Guadalajara office had a big, huge focus on the LGBTQ plus, and our Calgary office was focusing in the environment. That's great. The local offices are doing what interests them. And once we got momentum locally, we started to elevate these and say, how do we come together? So start small, start where people are interested in, choose the non-controversial, and do something that's sustainable itself. Choose a pace, one item a quarter, or something where you can sustain it so people do not experience as this is just another leadership program that people started and then it fizzled out.
Yeah, biting off more than you can chew sometimes, right? So that's so true. And it really does have to do with purpose, you know, whatever the organization's higher purpose is too. So that's great. Thank you for sharing that. And last thing before we go to the audience for question, do you have any advice for conscious leaders who are striving to foster a values-aligned culture of servant leaders who want to make a global impact? So, you know, you have half of the Improving team, you know, that's nationwide and in Canada and Mexico. What advice do you have for conscious leaders who are trying to really elevate their leadership teams within their organization to make that global impact?
Well, we consider this, it's not lip service. We consider our involvement in conscious capitalism part of our work. So when our employees and our executives are participating in events that are aligned or overlapping, it counts as part of their job responsibilities. This is part of that life integration that I was talking about, an integrated life where these things are integrated together and they get to take credit for work while doing some of these things. The more you can do that, the more aligned, you're showing alignment with some of the values here. And I'm going to go back to some of the other, if you're starting out, some of the other recommendations here. When it comes to culture and values, it still surprises me. Are you living by them yourself? I can't tell you how many leaders I meet, even in the conscious capitalism community, when I ask about their values, they might be able to list them maybe. And it's a maybe. And I'm like, how can that be? What activities are you doing on a regular basis to reinforce those values? Our trust, which is our aspiration, we have 4 values. 1 is aspirational and 3 we consider our identity. But our aspirational value of trust, every employee is expected, it's part of the recruiting, that you will become part of a trust training within the first quarter. It's a 17-week training program, and it happens every week. And then after that, you join trust pods, and you're talking about the 13 behaviors and 4 cores, and that's forever. That means we are talking about trust every week with every employee, just from the time. What deliberate practices that you can maintain around your culture and your values are you putting in place so that it is undeniably part of your culture?
I love it. That's a leadership principle that we also follow at Conscious Capitalism, is how to earn trust. So that's great. Okay, so I have a couple questions here from the audience. First one is from Bert. Do you have any plans expanding your activities to Europe?
Yes, it is in our 10-year vision. We have a 10-year vision. And right now our focus is on North America, but within the next 3 to 5 years, we do plan on expanding to both Asia and to Europe, and even South America as well.
Oh, that's great. And next one is from from Nick. It says, Curtis, you mentioned that your trust training program is 17 weeks long. Can you share some materials that it's based on?
Sure. There's a book. I have a tendency to want to go with material that's widely accessible. So we focus our trust training in 2 areas. The Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey, and then the Trusted Advisor. That's the more advanced version. But the Speed of Trust is where we start our training. And that initial training is the 17 weeks. There's 4 cores that are mentioned in that book, and then there are 13 behaviors. That's why there are 17 weeks. And it is one of the more impactful books. And what I can say about this material, if you're going to read it, it affects your life. It's not just about business and business relationships. My personal relationships are affected in this. And if you can imagine talking about how do you build trust? How do you regain it when you break it? What are the things that can break it? And the fact that trust is almost like a personality type. These behaviors, I might value some more than you do, and you might value some more than I do. And I have to start becoming more aware, applying a platinum rule versus the golden rule. I don't want to treat you how I want to be treated, because I want to be treated one way from trust. I need to treat you like you want to be treated from a trust behavior perspective. So that book alone is kind of, then we put internal things around this where we make sure we're discussing these behaviors, and then it's perpetual. You go into every quarter, your trust pod is coming together. How do these behaviors apply? And you would be surprised how much 30 minutes a week can have an impact, because that's what we dedicate, 30 minutes a week. These trust pods come together, but it's every week for 10 years, for 15 years, for 20 years.
It's a consistent thing that's, second nature for people, for your stakeholders to say, oh, we have our trust pod to participate in. That's great. And our team actually put in the book in the chat for our audience if you're interested in taking a look. Another one is Curtis mentioned starting with what your teams and employees are interested in. What kinds of tools did you use to gather that kind of information? Is it locally? I know you had mentioned you do local, kind of different topics locally, or do you want to try and gather that information company-wide? Do you have any tips on how you can get this kind of information? Would it be through surveys?
It's not through surveys. We didn't survey employees to necessarily, at least not formally. But when Sandy mentioned the champions, many of these champions were derived from other things we used to do. We want to engage our employees, and we want our employees to be engaged with improving. And one of the things to do, you start to sense the things that they like to do. And as a leader, you can tend to be aware. I don't need to survey my Columbus office or Dallas office to know that these, as typical, they love gaming, right? A lot of computer. Well, why can't we put together something with gaming? Well, then these people get together in their gaming, and somebody else says, well, why don't we go to the food bank? Next thing you know, the food bank is happening, and that happens over and over, and you can observe these things that people are doing. The other thing is self-organization. Somebody that wants a leadership or a management opportunity locally, give them the opportunity to run an employee event and see what employee event comes to fruition and see how many people participate. And that would be my preferred method, is you're giving somebody maybe their first management. Here's your budget. You get $1,000 to go run an event, or $1,500, or whatever your budget can be. It doesn't have to be that much. They get creative, and you'll see how many people participate. Now, maybe Sandy, you have some things you've done in Aguas Calientes and Mexico as well to kind of find out what people are interested in.
Well, the thing that we have done here is, as we mentioned it, we pick some topics that are very important for the company, like diversity and inclusion, reforestation, women, but others that we have been listening from the improvers. We are very close to our people. We are listen, we are having lunch with them, and then we listen them. For example, this month, we are going to have the video games tournament. For example, I don't know anything about video games. I ask all the help from all the IT team, and they will say, hey, I will help you, because I know talking with them that there is a very important topic for them, and we are listening to them, and that is very, very important. Actually, one of the topics that one of the advice I want to give is first to go and look for the sustainable development goals, read it, it's very easy, and then you can start identify that maybe you have done some stuff that and you didn't realize it, and you haven't named it in that way. Actually, that was happening before in improving, and then we start putting this strategy and we name it in that way. But I am almost sure that all the conscious business that we are having here, they are running right now this kind of initiative, but they don't name it in that way. So this is the first step. And the other one is get practices for another companies. That is the way that we start doing this. Listen for another companies in the ecosystem here in Mexico, asking them like, hey, I am addressing this problem, how you have been solved it. And in that way we are creating, you don't have to create something from scratch, because that will be more complicated, and even you can find an ally in improving. And if you have some question, how I can start running this, how you implementing that, we can share with you how we done this, because it's the way that we started like many years ago.
Oh yeah, I love that. Why start something from scratch when it already exists, especially, like improving modeling things on how, examples of how organizations can start to be sustainable organizations. And I think we have time for one last question, if it can be quick. This is for Curtis. Can you expand on what life integration versus the traditional work-life balance approach is, and provide a few examples of integration items in action?
Yeah, sure. And it's a topic I'm very passionate about. And I want to be careful here, because a lot of people hold on to the term work-life balance very tightly. and they might even form their life around a concept like that. I believe that the intent and the concept is good, but the word usage is very questionable. Work and life and balance, if you were to think about that, you have a balance and you're weighing them, it pits one versus the other. So what this is saying is life is against work and work is against life. And I just don't fundamentally believe that. So choosing a different word is the start. That's life integration. It's just an integrated life is what I say. And work is one aspect of that. And what you can find is if I have 10 areas of my life that I have vision for, everything from family to finance to faith to professional health. And I have these 10 areas, and where I can find a way to integrate these together into a single thing, friendships and things. So you're going to find me having friends at work. I do learning and development, which is an area. I have my work, which also usually contributes to my finance. As well, mental well-being from the fact of accomplishing meaningful things. Then you will find that I call them life hours. Well, in 1 hour of my time, I might be accomplishing 5 life hours because it's touching 5 different integrated aspects of my life. I have an entire presentation on this because I'm passionate about it. And I really I would love for people to understand that these things aren't pitted against each other. It's not a one or the other. It's not a life or a work. It's work is part of life, and so are so many other wonderful things.
That's great, but that could be for another virtual gathering that you could hopefully share that with us. It's really nice to see examples of conscious business leaders show and exemplify, what integration is, what that means for work and life. So we are a little bit over time, but I'm okay with that because this was such a great conversation. Thank you both for really sharing different ways that organizations can be sustainable, how to start, and how to integrate development into the organization. Really great examples and takeaways for our audience. Sustainability the last 4 or 5 years has become such a big topic, and then just has increased exponentially in the last 2 years. And there's so many ways that organizations can be that. So they just don't know where to start. So really, thank you for sharing this high level overview of all of the different ways that and different examples with each of the sustainable goals that Sandy had mentioned through the slides. And you could just take these goals one by one, So a big thanks to the audience as well for joining us today and for some great questions. For those of you who would like to dig a little deeper and ask Curtis and Sandy for more questions, I will put up their LinkedIn names and email addresses at the end of our session here. Just so you can connect with them if you have further questions for them. To help the CCI team to continue to improve and provide valuable programming like this, please fill out the brief survey that our team has provided in the chat. And if you are looking to learn more about conscious capitalism, the movement, the organization, our partners like Improving, please visit www.consciouscapitalism.org. You will find ways to learn more, get involved, engage, and engage with our other conscious business leaders through our senior leader network, as well as our chapters, and find out more upcoming programming and events. Curtis, Sandy, and everyone today, thank you so much for your time and your leadership and effort. I'm going to share, lastly, there's Sandy and Curtis's information on LinkedIn and their email addresses. But wishing everyone a really great rest of your week. And Curtis, Sandy, thank you again for your time. Have a great day.